Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today, we're going to be discussing James White and his endorsement of Gavin Ortlund, which we did a video on Gavin Ortlund recently, and I wanted to do sort of a follow up. And this article that one of my reporters wrote over the weekend is a very good opportunity to do that. I want to talk about what is going on with Gavin Ortlund, why he is the fascination of Big Eva, and going to provide some receipts on that as well. And also going to talk about James White. I think this is yet another liberal shift of James White. Again, a lot of the people who fought against social justice in the church are now fracturing on a different social justice issue, and I think James White is part of that. And you saw sort of his more or less. I would say it's a liberal view of history to oppose things like the Crusades. It wasn't a very historic argument. I don't think he's good on history because of his view on the Crusades in part. But with that said, this is yet another shift of James White in that he is endorsing a flaming theological liberal who goes to one of the worst churches in the United States, which I've talked about a little bit, but it's going to come up again as I kind of want to break down. Last time I talked about Gavin Ortlund being the next Tim Keller, but I also think he might be the next Russell Moore in some respects. Actually, I think he's a couple predecessors away from being Russell Moore, but I think he's on that trajectory, and it's a very bad trajectory. This guy is being groomed to be a sort of Tim Keller, a sort of Russell Moore, because you're not really going to see a whole lot of megachurch pastors. You're not going to see a whole lot of people just groomed into Big Eva who haven't made it out on their own. I think that YouTube is the next frontier for grooming Big Eva people, and Gavin Ortlund is the test subject for this. So that's what I'm going to get into and unpack. But first, I want you to know Evangelical Dark Web is a Christian news gathering and commentary ministry. We have a patron system that you can support our work, help support our authors over at Evangelical Dark Web, linked in the description below. Least you can do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, to the podcast if you are new. And here's the. Actually, let's get into James White first. So this is James White. It's a recent video that he did, and it's him endorsing Gavin Ortlund from what looks like a hotel room. So here is the clip.
Talk about something else here. I had mentioned as I was driving last week that Gavin Ortlund had put out a video about the Zaytoun stuff. And I had mentioned then, it's very useful. And then there's been discussion going on online concerning the issue of the canon, as there will always be, but specifically in regards to the deuterocanonical books, or what we call the Apocrypha. Deuterocanonical is the Roman Catholic terminology. But interestingly enough, the very term deuterocanonical points to a reality that Rome has somewhat obscured with its decree at the Council of Trent. So let me just first say, Gavin Ortlund puts out a lot of really good stuff. Really, really does. And you can learn a lot of stuff. He puts a lot of time into his videos, and you don't have to agree with all the conclusions. You don't have to, I guess he's an old Earth creationist or something like that, or maybe some. That's right. He believes that the Noahic flood was local and not global, and so there are things you can go, hey, I disagree about that. And it's funny. I saw people literally.
So let's just add some context to this. Not only did he espouse a view in the local flood, he also lied and fabricated evidence to this claim. Most notably, the one that I covered was when he lied about what Josephus said about the flood. Now, Josephus wrote a book about the history of the Jews, and it's very much a straight up little bit. It's a little bit of a commentary slash summary of the Old Testament, and specifically the book of Genesis. He does not at all espouse a local flood view, and this is a lie that, an easily verifiable lie that Gavin Ortlund presented in his video to support a historic precedent for his position. There is no historic precedent for his position outside of theological liberalism, because Gavin Ortlund is an old school theological liberal. So that's something to keep in mind. And that is the type of character, the person, that is the theology of the person that James White is endorsing. I think that theological liberalism is a much worse issue facing the church than Roman Catholicism. But that doesn't get the clicks on YouTube, much like doing the interdenominational debates does.
Literally saying, um, and they're basically saying, well, if he, how did the guy put it? I just don't know why I would listen to someone who could be so wrong on something like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to try to get this guy angry, but one thing I certainly learned in my theological education, interestingly enough at Fuller, because he did his doctoral degree at Fuller, you have to learn to, I hate the phraseology of the, eat the meat and spit out the bones and, all that kind of stuff. But that really is what you have to do. You have to be able to recognize there are some people that can do some really good work in this area over here. And you may disagree with them over here, but that doesn't change the fact their work over here is really, really useful. Now, if you want to cut yourself off from it and have to do all that work again yourself and reinvent the wheel, well, okay, fine, do whatever you're going to do. But for most of us,
so again, that's something that's very ironic coming from James White, because this is a guy who's made a lot of enemies that are otherwise people that he could be friends with over minor disagreements. Like, this guy has pretty much anathematized several people in the Reformed Baptist camp. I know he said that I'm like the nastiest guy ever and he wants to spank me, or wants me to have a good spanking, which was kind of gay when he said it. But I'm not the only one, and the Ogden Bros, the Joel Webb and Georgetown people. There's a lot of people he's kind of made unnecessary enemies out of. And Stephen Wolf, another person, he can't eat the meat and spit out the bones with someone like Stephen Wolf. And what is it over? It's over the issue of uh, natural apologetic method, or Thomism, whatever you want to call that, versus presuppositional apologetics. Again, it's over a very meaningless issue. I'm just going to be real. This is less than a tertiary issue. So, what exactly? Why does Gavin Ortlund get the pass, but so many people that are actually have good theology outside of their disagreements with James White, they don't get the pass at all? Why is that, James?
it's like, hey, recognize that you may disagree about something, but someone may have done some really, really good work. Now, my understanding is Gavin Ortlund really doesn't like me. We've never had any correspondence that I'm aware of. I don't think I've ever met him. I don't think he's ever been in any of my debates. I haven't been in any of his, to my knowledge, anyways. And so I'm not really sure what that's all about. I've just picked stuff up, little comments that he's made on webcasts and stuff like that, where he's taking little shots at me. And it's like, well, okay, that's fine.
He's a pretty catty individual. Let's be real.
When I commented recently about some of the stuff he said about Catholicism, is it Christian, and the category issues and stuff like that. And obviously, I take a much firmer stance on many of those issues than he does, and so maybe that's what it is. I really don't know, but I don't have any problem saying, hey, Gavin Ortlund's a good source to listen to on all sorts of topics, and feel free to do so. And I can recommend him, and he will never recommend me, but that's his loss, not mine. I'm not going to, he may be narrower. It's interesting that he's broader in other areas, but then very narrow in that area. So, whatever. Okay, fine.
Okay, so that's all the James White I wanted to show, but I wanted to kind of circle back to what is the deal with Gavin Ortlund. Now, he is someone that is being astroturfed by Big Eva. They really like this guy for some reason, and I think the reason is nefarious, because you got to recognize the forces of spiritual warfare at play here. I don't have the article up for this already, but Gavin Ortlund was selected by the Tim Keller Center to be one of their inaugural fellows. This is a very liberal group that he gets to be a part of, and he's definitely one of the liberals in the group. So he's alongside several side B theologians in this group, and I would consider Gavin Ortlund to be side B because of the church that he goes to, which is Emmanuel Church in Nashville, Tennessee. This church has Russell Moore as a as like a public minister in residence or something like that, while he is the theologian in residence. It also has Sam Alberry, a homosexual pastor who teaches that gay identity and desires are not sin. This is something that is abominable, yet it is taught in Gavin Ortlund's church. It is not a Orthodox church for that reason. It is a very compromised church on a very pressing issue in our current culture. Also, the church that John Piper's son preaches at. So that's pretty interesting as well. It is a church that trades in celebrity culture, a Christian celebrity culture, to be specific. So for him to be at this church, for him to be preaching alongside or working underneath Sam Alberry, who and being part of the Tim Keller Center when Tim Keller was, a woke social justice warrior before it was cool. I mean, the guy was doing that in like 2000, but Tim Keller was always a liberal. He was always theologically liberal. He was never orthodox in his views on scripture at all. And Gavin Ortlund's kind of like the next Tim Keller in some respects because YouTube is going to be the pathway for success and influence in the future of Big Eva. That is my bold prediction. And this is an article that I wrote, I believe, late last year, where Christianity Today gave Gavin Ortlund's book an award. And why did they give him an award? Because he goes to the same church as Russell Moore. So I'm not going to pretend like there's no conflict of interest in this award show. But if Gavin Ortlund were orthodox in his theology, if he had sound doctrine, he would not be getting an award by Christianity Today. This is the organization that just went shy of, doing a full endorsement of Kamala Harris. I actually think they cowered out of doing that because of how bad she was. But nonetheless, that is what we're talking about here in terms of which organization's giving him an award. And also, let's check out Church Leaders. This is another liberal outlet. This is a gay affirming outlet. They are hardcore pushing Gavin Ortlund. They're doing coverage for videos that he's done. Why is this gay affirming outlet? This is the outlet that defended Andy Stanley and also promotes a lot of this, Sam Alberry, Preston Sprinkle types, as well as Mark Yarhouse, who's like the mad Big Eva gender scientist. Why is this organization endorsing Gavin Ortlund, giving him positive press, and trying to help astroturf his career in YouTube ministry? Why are they doing that? Why are all these liberal outlets coalescing around Gavin Ortlund? Because I think he is their chosen one. Megan Basham did sort of point this out in her book, Shepherds for Sale, about the packaging of Gavin Ortlund being good packaging to present liberal ideology to the next generation of Christians. And she specifically talked about that as it relates to climate change, and that Gavin Ortlund was advocating for government intervention on climate change. But we also got to point out that in the last video we talked about with Gavin Ortlund, he was promoting third wayism and that the biblical solution is somewhere in the middle between the left and the right, meaning he's trying to move Christianity to the left. Because the reality is the biblical solution is to the right of the Republican Party. It's not somewhere in the middle of the Republicans and the Democrats. Only a liberal would say that. And that's what Gavin Ortlund is, just like his father, Ray Ortlund, who is a hardcore theological and political liberal. So that's what's going on here in just a broader picture of spiritual warfare. YouTube is going to be the place where uh, new influencers in Christianity rise and maybe also fall. And, it works both ways. I mean, it works for good and it also works for evil. And my hope is that it can at least work for good more than it works for evil, and that we can expose bad actors like Gavin Ortlund uh, as they come up. So James White is once again demonstrating no discernment, which is a little bit of a pattern because Michael Brown, I mean, he endorsed Michael Brown for how long and maybe still does. I don't know if James White has commented on his scandals. Uh, but anyway, that's all I got for today. My name is Ray, it's the Evangelical Dark Web. If you like this content, do also subscribe to the channel, to the podcast if you are new. Have a blessed day. Stay based. Christ is King. And we will catch you on the next one.